Hey guys, it is Poober here for episode 38 of my Factorio series. This is by far the episode I have been most looking forward to because today we are without a doubt turning on all of the labs and getting science working. There have been a couple different options. I think last stream I showed you guys one of those potential options, which was designed by someone else I saw on Reddit. But the more I thought about it, the more I was thinking I want to do something really different. And I've been using cars this whole time for all of my smelting designs. So I was thinking, what if we were to use cars for a lab design? So today, hopefully we can design a prototype for that. These are kind of the basics for the car smelting design. So I think let's just start kind of placing stuff down. This is for smelting, of course, so we're going to have to trade out the electric furnaces for the actual labs. Here we go. So I guess it would go like that, maybe? And one nice thing about this lab setup is that we actually won't need any unloading because obviously there's no product of the labs apart from what you get with the research. Oh, shoot. What is going on here? Oh, no. Oh, shoot. Okay, let me fix this real quick. 2.4. I saw 2.5 for a split second. Did you guys see it? 2.5 for a teeny tiny second. Okay, we're steadily improving. That's a good sign. We're still not getting jammed. That's an even better sign. No! Why? Oh. Stupid cars. But what this means, if I'm still not getting 2.5, even with, oh, shoot. Why? Man, that's freaking frustrating. Okay. For whatever reason, this factory is cursed, and this one is just fine. So my plan is to start to build this thing in my vanilla map. I'll get the cars to work on the vanilla version. For whatever reason, like I said, this one is cursed. And then it will all be just fine. Well, after quite a few hours of the design process, along with a lot of patience, a lot of monitoring, a lot of traffic jams, particularly in the section over here where I had a lot of troubleshooting, and even, I have to admit, quite a bit of salt. Why? Man, that's freaking frustrating. I think the design is actually at the point where I was hoping it would be. You can actually see at this point, all of the cars are evenly dispersed on the belt line here, and all of the labs are basically working at 100% of the uptime. Now taking a look at the production statistics, you can see over the 5-second interval, we are at 2.5 thousand per minute. For the 1 minute interval, we are also at the 2,500 per minute consumption rate mark. So that is exactly what I was hoping for. So at this point, I just have to install this in my vanilla world and hope it works just as efficiently as it does here. Before we switch back over and start building this in my vanilla map, let me talk about how this works really briefly for those of you who might not be familiar with a car smelting or car delivery setup like we have here. So this design was inspired by Alazen's original design, which was using cars to deliver products for smelting purposes. So I basically took that principle and applied it to labs instead. So the design I'm using here is very similar to what he originally designed. It's got beacons basically in between the rows of labs. And then this setup is also very familiar to what he designed, although I modified it a little bit by allowing both sides of the cars to be fed instead of just the single side as in Alazen's original design. So those are really the only ways I've modified it, apart from, of course, swapping out the smelters that were originally in Alazen's design with these labs. So how does this work, especially if all of the labs are parallel to the cars? Well, it just so happens that the hitbox for the car is actually wider than what you can see going on the belt line here. So the car, even though it can fit parallel to the labs, is actually having a hitbox wide enough so that the inserter can actually pull from the car, take the labs from there, and put it into the lab facility. Now, some of you might be asking, why would I want to bother with a design like this for a lab setup to begin with? Well, the big reason is that it's something different. I haven't seen very many car smelting designs, let alone I've never seen a car lab design before. So this is the first that I know of. But secondly, there are some actual practical reasons for doing it. Taking a look at the car inventory here, you can see that this holds a ton of storage, more so compared to anything that a bot could carry or anything that can fit in any of these tiles of the belt line as it goes along. So I end up having significantly more storage capacity in a denser space. Another possible reason, which I can't for sure confirm, but this is just a theory of mine, is that because I don't have any labs going on the belt lines here, so you actually never see any exchange of labs in terms of like the actual sprite for it. That should hopefully save on the FPS and UPS for larger bases like the one I have in my vanilla map. Although you could also argue that because I do have so many cars going in circles, that might actually cause the downsides to my FPS and UPS, so I can't say for sure, but that is a possible theory at the very least. Either way, I love this design in total. I'm so glad that I can use it for lab purposes now and research. But if you guys want any more information about this type of setup and how to use it for smelting purposes, you can see my original video that will be linked to the upper right hand corner over here. Or you can check out Alazen's channel, which is linked in the description box down below, where he has a much more extensive video detailing the ins and outs and all of the math and things I can't even really articulate in terms of the car smelting design. Alright, following the stream, I am back in the regular map, of course. I'm starting out in this empty square though because this is where I'm planning on installing one of the lab factories. Now I say one of them because according to the stream I mentioned 2,500 signs per minute consumption rate. So that means in order to match 5,000 I need to actually install 2 versions of that lab factory. So what I'm planning on doing is putting in version 1 over here and then putting in another factory of the same lab setup over here, as evidenced by these little labs you can see just over the map square area. I also have some other objectives for today. I also need to end up moving my rocket silo factory, so I'm planning on moving that from up here to probably down here in this square, which means I now have to move my newly built stone factory. So I'm either going to move the stone factory up here to this square or possibly down to one of these on the bottom sides. So that is a lot of objectives for one day, but I want to start with installing the labs. Objective 1, almost complete. I've got this side of things, which is the east side of the labs, done, and all of the cars are added onto the belts, as you can see all these little triangles zooming by. The west side is not quite done. I've still gotten a lot of cars to add in, but oddly enough, I had a much easier time adding in all of the cars to the belts than I did in the live stream for whatever reason. So it went a lot smoother than I expected, but I'm so excited to get this finally turned on, which we'll do at the end of the episode today. But before that, I've got a couple other things we need to do, and that is going to be objective number 2, which is moving the stone brick factory. I'm thinking I'm instead going to be moving it down here to the bottom, and that way we can put the rockets in this section, and I'm actually going to be doing like a little bit of a lab and coal train station setup over here, which I will explain a little bit later on. But first things first, I have to sadly demolish this almost brand new stone brick factory and replace it somewhere else. Well, transplanting the stone brick factory was more of a pain than I anticipated, but it is finally over here. I tried to salvage as much stone brick that was kind of stored in all of the boxes as possible, but after quite a long time I finally kind of lost patience and finally nuked the rest of it. So that's why you can see all these like little black spots around, but I think that should eventually go away, I hope. Regardless, at some point we'll eventually make everything look a little bit nicer, add some concrete flooring and stuff like that. The rocket silos are going to be going into the square over here. I just have to figure out a proper configuration for it because I need to fit in the silos as well as the stackers for it and make sure I have room for the 2, 5, 2 trains, or at least multiples of my 2, 4, 2 trains. Well, I can cross off objective number 3 from my to-do list as well. I installed a brand new rocket silo factory just below the main base area, so I still have the original just up here to the top as well, which I will eventually end up demolishing. But for now, I moved a new set of rocket silos just below the main base area and installed a new design as well. So this is very different looking than what I have up here to the north. Obviously, this is more circular shape. This one is more rectangular, but this does allow me to have a much bigger stacker setup. So this will actually fit a 2, 5, 2 wagon setup. And then I have obviously longer train stations up here for drop off of the rocket parts, low density structures, and then the rocket fuel. And that way all of the rocket silos can get even distribution of all of the products it needs and have enough of their throughput. I'm also using a balancer system over here to each side. The one to the left and right is for rocket fuel and rocket parts. And then in the middle, which is this train station here, I'm actually going to be using bots to deliver the low density structures into the rocket silos. Now, one thing I added, which I don't have to the original rocket silo setup, is these combinators, which will hopefully allow me to sync up the rocket launches. I don't actually know for sure. I haven't tested this out. So once we actually get this started will be the first time I see this in motion. But how I am hoping this would work is that if there is less than, I think I set the condition to 2,000, yep, 2,000 white science in this box here, it will output a signal of white. So this is the same condition for all 6 of these rocket silos, except for when we get to the other inserter over here, also adjacent to each rocket silo, we only have this enable if we have an input of white equaling 6, which we technically have at this point as a signal of white equaling 6, but of course we can't launch anything right now because nothing else is turned on. So we'll see how that does once we have all of the supplies coming to it. But before I can turn this on, I do have to add in a new train station to pick up the satellites. Now that is one downside to this setup, now having the rocket silos just south of the main base, because up here I was able just to belt in the satellites, but since I've completely moved them and they are no longer sharing a square, the satellites will have to be brought in via train. We're now up here to the satellite factory where you can tell I cleared out the previous rocket silo setup and made a lot of room for something that will be going in here in the future, but that will be for a later episode. But I wanted to kind of get my ducks in a row for expanding all of the stations that I will need and all of the train stackers. So all of the train loading stations for the low density structures over here, the rocket control units up here, and the rocket fuel I have actually expanded to a 2-5-2 train setup. And then of course I've added in the satellite train loading station as well. So that way when I do turn everything on, we do have trains ready to go and the correct length to feed into the rocket silo factory. But there is still one last thing I have to do. I know I keep saying that, but that is to actually do a lab exchange train station. I'm putting that down in this square over here. And the reason why I need it is because all of my current lab trains are a 1-1-1 train setup. So I'm planning on using a 2-4-2 setup for the labs, as you can see with this configuration. So basically what I have to do is swap my 1-1-1 trains to the 2-4-2 trains. So I will show you how that's going to work in this square over here. All right, first things first, let's go ahead and clear all of these trees like normal. That way we have plenty of room to know what we're working with. Now that that's done, I have a blueprint that I worked on in my creative map, which I need to bring over here. Here's what I'm talking about for the train swapper. Let me actually pull it up in the blueprint mode so you can see it a little bit better before I place it down. But here it is. So the idea is I have 7 of these different train stations, 1 for each science, so red all the way through space science. So for instance, we might do like red, green, gray, blue, purple, yellow, white, something like that maybe. And then this train station here is set up for a 2-4-2 train. All of these ones over here to the left are for 1-1-1 trains. And then that way we have these unloaded, they combine with the belts, and then these all get kind of distributed to the 2-4-2 train over here. And that way the 2-4-2 train is the train that can go on and actually deliver the labs into the research facility. So that's my reasoning for that. If we weren't to use something like this, I would have to do something like this for all of the lab setup, which would just take a ton of room. So I'd rather just get it done here and then transport the proper length train to where it needs to go. Plus this allows me to fit in another stacker, so we'll have the benefit of that and adding more trains in the future. So at this point, I just need to figure out where to put it. I'm not 100% sure. It's not just a matter of easily placing it down like I usually do. I do need to worry about being able to fit in a stacker, so I'm thinking we'll probably put this little train swapper thing over here to the upper left-hand corner of the square, and then over here to the right we'll have the trains come off of the main railway. They'll do some sort of stacker configuration over here and then move on to the actual swapper itself. As far as the lower half of the square, I'm thinking about doing a similar thing but with coal, because at this point I have my coal farming stations like way out to the exterior perimeters of the map, which are just super far away at this point. So all of the trains that require coal have to go up and pick up the coal at the coal farming stations, but I'd rather have it be more of a centrally located train station at this point to pick up the coal to things that are more useful, like for plastic, for instance. So that's what I'm thinking of doing for the bottom half, but I will worry about that probably later or off camera or something like that. But for now, let me work on the Tetris or the logistics of getting the swapper figured out. Here's how the lab train swapping setup turned out, and to be honest, I really hate it. It just ends up looking really bulky after it was all said and done, and this was the version I liked the most. In fact, it had a couple previous iterations that I just absolutely downright hated. But I've already come up with a plan B. But I think for now, I'm still going to leave this here because these are still some bones that I can use for still refurbishing it for the coal swapping station, like I mentioned also earlier. But in terms of the plan B option, I ended up going with what I said I was absolutely not going to do, which was incorporate the swapping stations into the actual lab research facility itself. So as you can tell, I now have 7 separate train stations that will each deliver its own separate science into each station. These then get kind of divvied up and combined with other belts and then underground belted, and then these finally feed into the cars on both sides of the belt. And of course, because we need 2 of these stations, I did mirror the left-hand side to also work for the right-hand side as well. Well, here we are back at the new rocket silo setup. It's looking really good, and you can see I've even got some of the trains now color-coded. I decided to do like a red, green, blue, purple for the white science because I figure it's kind of like a prism. White reflects all colors, and I'm already using white for some of the other trains. So I've also got colors for all of the other trains. You can see blue and purple are over here, looking really nice. I've also got red, green, and gray for those red, green, and military sciences. So I've done just about everything I can possibly think of to really get prepared for turning everything on for the labs and therefore all of the science at once. And I can't think of anything else big that we have to do, which means it's finally time to turn on the labs and actually send the science trains to the lab setup and see everything get turned on. But for me, it is now 10:45 at night. So sadly, I have to go to bed and I have to be responsible. But for you guys, I did promise that we wouldn't end today's episode until we finally turned everything in the labs department on. So for the purposes of keeping my word, stick around because the final cut will feature everything turned on. Alright, so to turn this on, let's start sending the trains where they need to go. So this one is rocket fuel. And I already have some trains kind of buffered, down here. So those are going to start unloading. My compression is not great. I may want to play with that a little bit. Okay, that one's working now. That one is working. That one's... Ooh! Okay, they're preparing. Oh, I still have to press the auto launch thing. So I'll at least be able to manually make sure that these get synced up. These are all ready to go. I don't know that my current condition combinator thing will work, so I'll try rack balance. Assuming it doesn't, I don't think it will. But yeah, let's see. These 6 get turned on now. I know this is kind of what we did 2 streams ago, but this is the new setup. Oh man. That will never get old. That is just so cool. But anyway, so space science works. This is the new improved area. I think I do like it better than the original one. So at this point, we need to set requesters over here, the conditions to request space science. We'll do, sure, 2,000 per chest. That'll work out just fine. Okay, I would call this at least a minor success. God, this is gonna be so full, but that's fine. The fuller it is, even though it's not necessary, the fewer trips and the less congestion on my train tracks that I will have, so I'm fine with this. Are you guys ready to see the actual labs and everything work? Let's take the train, shall we? So sending this on its way will actually be the start of turning the labs on. Oh, awesome! White science is already getting loaded into the cars. Oh, shoot. Look at my power. My power just, like, totally bombed. Oh my gosh. Well, I can't say that is a surprise. I just didn't expect it to be bombing only after turning on one thing. Okay, this is only 1,000 science. That should be pretty quick. So let's use this as a control. This is, I think, the cheapest science I can do now at this point. Yeah. So 1,000 science. So keep in mind this will not be as efficient as it can be because my power is, like I said, dumping in the nighttime. But let's test it out. We'll do shotgun shell damage 7. It's working. Oh my god. You've got to be kidding me. I know it was gonna be fast, but I didn't expect that fast. How is the... Oh my gosh. 5K for purple, 4.7 for green. And this is with my power pooping right now. Yellow, ignore yellow. Yellow is the underachiever. So is blue. Wow, well, that is totally awesome. And that's the base not even being fully efficient. That is so cool. Uh-oh. I'm beginning to get some congestion. At least I'm not entirely jamming, though. Oh, no. Oh, no. What happened here? All right, let's hop out. Let's fix that. Gosh, I have so many things I need to fix. Shut up, you guys. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm just back here doing the same thing I was doing with my nuclear build. See, this is what I need. I need more crosswalks like this. And then I also want to make these fancy so that, like, those turn off, for instance, if... Actually, maybe let me play with this now, just for the heck of it. That's not what I want. Fudge! Are you freaking kidding me?
That's not what I want. Fudge!
Oh, God. Oh, what was I thinking? I was just sitting there, like, running back and forth into this wall, not understanding why it's only closing when I want it to only open if it's green. Fudge. Oh my God, I'm an idiot. Okay. I feel like my face is all red with anger. Well, that stream is done and over with, but obviously, as you guys can tell from the footage, I got so much done. There was a little bit of chaos mixed in with it, but it was still, all in all, a really productive day. In fact, to get all of the footage you've seen in this video, it was taking up 3 full days of my weekend, basically Factorio several hours per day. So I'm probably going to be slowing down some of the videos quite a bit, or focusing more on streams just now that I'm at the point where I'm really needing to focus on optimizing my factories instead of building or designing entirely new ones. But I will still be putting out footage of the beautification process and of course other streams and video updates as applicable. For instance, also in between the stream and now, I was able to install that coal swapping factory that I was talking about. So here I have trains drop off coal, and then other trains that need it to deliver it to the actual factories come here and pick it up, just like this one is doing. And then those continue along their way to the factories that they are going to. Also, since the stream, I started at about 530 rockets launched prior to turning everything on. But since then, I have now launched 701 satellites or rockets into space. We also did a little bit of testing during the live stream as well, just to see how fast the research was. In one example, we did a 4,000 science research, and that took only 57 seconds from start to finish. And I've done a ton of research as well. I started out, I believe, about mining productivity 40 something, and I'm now up to mining productivity 57 for the next one to research. I've researched artillery shell range, artillery shell shooting speed. I've researched a lot of the cheaper things as well. Next on my to-do list, though, will be to do the worker robot speed, as well as to continue to increase my mining productivity. Another thing I will add is that I did notice an FPS and UPS drop, particularly when I was doing the research and had more of the factories turned on. The lowest I saw it was actually in the mid-40s, but when everything is fairly just kind of idle or just passively working, as it kind of is now without any active research, I'm still up there in the high 50s and about 60 FPS every so often as well. So I'm taking that as a positive sign for now, but I know I've still got even more factories to add in the future. But for now, we're going to go ahead and end this very long episode here. Thank you guys for joining me in the stream. Thank you guys for continuing to check out the videos. Thanks for dealing with my occasional saltiness, and I hope you continue to stick around for more to come. Sub to me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination.